Well, good afternoon. This is Comp 422 and Comp 620, and we are talking, if we can get around to it, we are talking about digital certificates today. Okay. The evil Dr. Williams has put not one, but two assignments out there. There is a bunch of questions, not too long, sort of questions that will look very much like the exam, which is a week from today. So this is sort of a practice exam. It is due by noon on Monday. That's the next class day. I think there's only like 5 questions. Some of them are actually multiple choice, which you won't see very often in this class. One of them requires you to sign a file, and we'll talk more about that today. There's another assignment. Last class, people had a hard time figuring out that there were a maximum of 5 bits in a when you have 3 different values. So we're going to look at that, do a number-based conversion. This is easy. The answers are out there. Excuse me. Yes, if you go to the class website, there's a link to the quiz. There's also a link to the answers. It's easy, but the goal for you is to learn the simple number conversions, learn the hexadecimal to decimal conversion, and learn the binary to hexadecimal conversions. It's not that hard. Once you get them, you answer these things. It is a timed quiz. You must do it in under 180 seconds, which is really slow. I've been practicing, but I tried a couple times. Even with lots of fumbling, I could get it done in less than 180 seconds. That's 3 minutes. There are 20 questions. Do the arithmetic, that's 9 seconds a question. You should be able to answer it in 9 seconds a question. You just look it up. But you got to do it fast. It is timed. I say it again. It is timed. Your score is the percent right minus the number of seconds over 180. So if you sit there all day and you do it nice and slowly and you get 100%, that's real good, but you might get a miserable score because we're going to subtract the time after 3 minutes. So you want to do it quickly. You can do it as often as you like. Just keep doing it over and over and over again. And I'll take your best score, not your last score, your best score. So you can just keep trying until you get 100 on it. You should be able to get 100 on this. The web page will display your score. And again, repeat it as often as you like. Yes. There are 20 questions. Yeah, 20 questions. So 9 seconds a question on average. Some of them are easy. Some of them you have to think about it. Yes, you could get a calculator and do it. Also, of course, I pointed out the answers are there. But just learn it. You'll be better off if you learn it and then do it. That's why it's fast, because if I didn't make it fast, nobody would learn it. They'd just look it up and be done with it. Okay. So that's the question. Yes. Yes, I am. Okay. The first exam in this course is 1 week from today. It'll be online, which starts at 6 a.m. and it ends at midnight. It will not take you 18 hours to do the exam. Normally, my goal is for the exam to take about 2 hours. In fact, I'd like students to time themselves. I will put a survey out on Blackboard during the exam and ask you, well, how long did it really take you? So see how long it takes. The reason I start at 6 a.m. to midnight is to give everybody who's a working schedule an opportunity to do the exam. Yes, your question. Yes. Now, that's how I've set up Blackboard. Now, sometimes Blackboard follows what I do, and sometimes it makes up its own rules. But let me know if that doesn't work that way. Should be able to just go back and do it. Okay, until midnight. Midnight, yes. So I would not start this at 11 p.m. at night. It may take you a little longer. Once you get to midnight, it's going to shut you down. Yes, when the clock strikes 12, Blackboard shuts you off. There will be no class during the exam. But if you have any questions, if you come to a question and you wonder, what in blazes is he trying to ask? just text me, email me, call me, and I'll happily explain. And if it, generally, if I get a question like that, I will email it out to everybody, letting them know what was asked, what the answer is. So somebody else may have that same question. Okay, everybody understand the schedule and the assignments. They're on Blackboard. Oh, for the number-based assignment, you do not have to upload anything at all to Blackboard. As you go through the quiz and enter this information, the information you want, or excuse me, your result will be uploaded to the server. When I ask your name, please put enough of your name so I know who you are. Don't just put Joe, because there may be more than one Joe in the class. I have to know who you are. So please put your name. Yes.
That like you only get one attempt at that?
No, the encryption assignment, again, you can do it as often as you like. So, yeah, you can go out and read it, go back, do the file encryption, which shouldn't take you very long, and then upload the file. And that's a Blackboard thing. Some are multiple choice. There's a couple one upload file, a couple short answer sort of questions. Okay. All right. Quick review. Symmetric encryption. Symmetric encryption uses the same key to encrypt and decrypt. Popular ones are AES, DES, and they are typically substitution permutation ciphers. They involve stages of exclusive OR with the key, substitution S boxes, and then permutation where you rearrange the bits. AES is the most popular one. Exclusive OR, there's some questions about exclusive OR. Let me just go over that real quickly. Exclusive OR, often shown as a circle with a plus in it. You can think of it as addition without the carry. So if you have a 0 and a 0, you add together, you get a 0. 0 to 1 is a 1. 1 to 0 is a 1. 1 and a 1 is a 0. Carry the nothing. You don't carry that extra 1 anywhere. So that's exclusive OR. Or basically, one side, the A or the B has to be 1, the other side false, and it gets 1. Okay. Here's some examples. You can take a number, any binary number, exclusive OR with something else, and you get this pattern. I just made that up. And you can see 1 to 1 is a 0, 0 to 1 is a 1, 1 to 1 is 0, 0 to 1, 1, so forth. Then I take that same answer we got there, and I exclusive OR with that value, and we get the other number, get the number we started with. That's one of the interesting things about exclusive OR. You put things together, exclusive OR, and we get back what you started with. Okay, that's used a lot in many encryption things. Asymmetric encryption, often called public key encryption, has two keys that are related mathematically. We've talked about how you make the keys. They are separate. Their size is usually a couple thousand bytes. 3,000 bits, 4,000 bits are a very popular size. That is the value n. Take the message, which you can always think of as a great big integer, even though it may be a couple hundred bytes, but think of it as an integer, and then you can raise that integer to the e power modular n, that is remainder mod n, and that gives you the ciphertext C. And then you can undo that by just raising the ciphertext to the power d mod n, and it gives you back the plain text. It's pretty straightforward. But not fast, though. It is much, much slower than, say, AES or DES by orders of magnitude. Now, once you can encrypt things, it's important in how you use that encryption. There are several encryption modes. The electronic codebook mode is your straightforward, very simple. You take one block of plain text, you encrypt it, and you get a block of ciphertext. You do that for the next one, the next one. Very simple. You can parallelize that quite well. You can do all these at the same time, if that's possible, and get the ciphertext. It is not as secure because if two of the blocks of plain text are the same, then two of the blocks of ciphertext will be the same, and a cryptanalysis can look at that and figure out what's going on to some extent. Cipher block chaining is much more secure. In cipher block chaining, you take the ciphertext from the previous block, exclusive OR with the plain text, that's that plus equals again, and then encrypt the result of the exclusive OR, and that gives you the ciphertext, and you just continue down the line. You start the whole thing with an initialization vector. Initialization vector is just a bunch of random bits, same size as the plain text block, and that's basically the first pseudo block. It takes the place of the blocks later on, and just has to be random. You don't have to keep it separate. You do not have to keep it secret, but you need to store it because you need to use the same initialization vector to decrypt. Are there questions about that? Yes. Okay.
So when you say you with the ciphertext, right? You're talking about the actual bits, not the actual plain text message, but like the bits behind are the things that are being explored. Like what the previous demo was like 110.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Exactly. Here we talk about exclusive ORing it. You're exclusive ORing the plain text block, which I think it's 128 bits long. And you take a initialization vector or the previous ciphertext block, and you exclusive OR it bit by bit, just like we showed before. Is that okay?
So it's not like plain text words.
No, we're talking bits. Bits are bits. Because remember, plain text could be a text, could be a document, could be a picture, could be a program. Bits are bits, it doesn't matter. Yes, ciphertexts are just, and they look like random bits. Well, okay, this is the encryption. There's a very similar decryption schedule that undoes the whole thing. But basically, you take a block, because you look at the big, say you're doing a picture, and you take the bytes 8 at a time. That's 128 bits. No, that would be 16 at a time, sorry. 16 bytes, 8 bits per byte, that'd be 128. Take it 16 bytes at a time and encrypt those. But before you encrypt it, you exclusive OR that plain text, that picture, with the previous ciphertext, which scrambles it up pretty much. And then you encrypt it, which scrambles it even more. So when you look at the ciphertext, it's, unless you go through the decryption algorithm, chaining through like you're supposed to, you can't make any sense out of it. Did I answer your question? Kind of. Right.
Originally, and it's or exclusive ORing with the previous one we got, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Okay. Anybody online have questions? I think we've figured it out here in class. Oh, okay. Yes, sir.
So how do you know how many times you need to do this?
Oh, okay. Each plain text block, I should probably should have, it's like plain text block 1, plain text block 2, plain text block 3, depending on how big your file is that you're trying to encrypt. So if the file's, let's make it simple, say it's 16,000 bytes long, then you divide it into 16 bytes, it would be 1,000 blocks. And you do each block, so there'd be 1,000 of these. I only showed 3 because I only have so much room on the slide, but you then have 1,000 of these ciphertext blocks, which all are concatenated one after another and stored in the file as the encrypted data.
So does the person who takes, like, or is encrypted, do they decide how big the block is?
The algorithm usually takes a certain size. AES takes 128 bits input. Yeah, okay. RSA, another algorithm, well, RSA, you could use RSA here, uses a bigger block. I think it's 255. It's bigger. Exactly what it is, I do not remember, but it's bigger blocks.
And then it runs out, like, you have 60,000.
You have to round up, yes. Which brings about a good question about how do you know that that there's padding on the end? That's the whole question of padding, which we have not discussed, and we'll talk about that later. Yes. Important question is, what if the number of bytes is not evenly divided into 16, which probably happens a lot. Then you have some extra bytes. Well, what you do is they put just padding on the end and go round it up. And then you have to take the padding off at the end because you don't want to have garbage there. Yeah. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but there, yes. And some people get really picky about that, even though you would think any random bunch of bits would do the job. But talk about random bunch of bits, the initialization vector can just be a random bunch of bits, but you have to save it. Typically, they put it in the beginning of the file. So when you go to decrypt it, you're going to need that same initialization vector so that you can do the decryption, which I don't have in these slides, but I had it in the previous set of slides, shows you the decryption. And therefore, you can undo the encryption, get back to the plain text. Yes.
So you said the initialization vector doesn't need to be secret.
That's right. It doesn't need to be secret. Right. It doesn't. The initialization vector does not need to be secret. In fact, it has to be known to the person who decrypts it. And you don't have to get it to them secretly. You have to get them the key secretly, assuming it's using symmetric encryption. So both sides have to do it. But typically, one actually just puts the initialization vector without doing anything to it in the beginning of the file and send it along. And the other side, when they want to decrypt it, they just read the initialization vector from the file and then use that to decrypt the rest of it. Okay? Again, that's blockchain mode. Gallows counter mode works a little different, but the same kind of concept. We're taking an initialization vector. In this case, we just use the initialization vector. Think of it as a big number. You add 1 to it, and then you encrypt it. The encryption algorithms are such that if you change just 1 bit in the input, it changes about half the bits in the output. It really scrambles it up. So just incrementing it gets you a bunch of random values, and then you exclusive order the plain text with that random value that was generated, and that's your ciphertext. And there's a similar algorithm, which I discussed on Monday, that undoes it all. This is more easily parallelizable than this because this one, you need the previous block in order to do it. So you have to kind of do it block at a time, which in most cases is okay. But if you've got a big computer with 8 cores and you're going to do it in parallel, well, then this doesn't parallelize very well. But this one does. I might mention Zoom. Zoom uses the GCM encryption mode. Everything going over Zoom is encrypted. So pictures, the images are all encrypted. They're encrypted up to the Zoom server, which then sends them out to whoever's supposed to get them and encrypts them again. So sometime there was a couple of years ago an argument. Zoom said, "Oh, end-to-end encryption," and somebody said, "No, it's not. End-to-end would be from my computer to your computer. That's not what it is. It's from my computer to the server, and then they decrypt it, recrypt it down to your computer. Every computer in the server have a different key that we use." Okay, good enough. Moving on. So that's encryption. Hashing. Hashing is typically used for integrity. A hash is a function over the text that creates a number. Basically, an easy way to think of it is a checksum. Just add up all the bytes in the data, it gives you a number. There are more complicated ways to do it that if you make any change in the text, the number is changed. And it's very hard to go backwards. A checksum is pretty simple. If you gave me a checksum number, I could make a text file that adds to that because I just make what I want. And then if it didn't add up, I could add some bytes or change some bytes, so it does. The SHA, standard hash algorithms, there's SHA-1, there's SHA-256, there's a bunch of others. They are very complicated. Well, they're not that hard to do, but they're one way in the sense that it's very, very hard to make a document, some text, that generates a given hash, a hash. So if you have this hash number, it's very hard to make. It's very easy to take the text and make the hash number, but very hard to go the other direction. Okay. So what you do with that is you take the message, you calculate the hash, then you encrypt it with your encryption key, append it to the message, either store it or send it to whoever wants to get it. At that point, they separate the hash from the message. They also decrypt the hash that they received, and then they compare them. Did the one they calculate equal the one that was received? If it is, they have a strong feeling that the message has not been changed, because if any bit in the message had been changed, the hash would be different and they wouldn't compare. Also, they know that it came from whoever said it came from, because the key, assuming that only the sender and the receiver know the proper key pair, if you decrypt this, if somebody had changed it in the middle, they wouldn't know the keys to make it work. Okay, good enough. So the message authentication code, sorry, MACs, media access, no, that's something else. Message authentication codes provide authentication. They provide integrity. They do not in any way make the message hard to read. You can both encrypt the file and add a MAC to it. So nobody can read it, and you know where it came from, and you know it hasn't been changed. Note that even if it's encrypted, if you go out there and you change the ciphertext, that will change the plain text after it's decrypted. You may not know how it's changed. In fact, you probably won't know what the plain text will look like if you go out and change a few bits or bytes of the ciphertext, but it will be different. So you can, and sometimes you can kind of guess, well, if you knew the format of the message, and you might know something important is, 115 bytes into the message, you might just tweak those bits of the ciphertext a little bit, and that will change, 16 bytes, because it's block by block. You change one bit, about half the byte. So 16 bytes will become garbage, but it might not interpret those garbages correctly. Okay, so it doesn't encrypt, but it does provide integrity. The encryption provides confidentiality. So our first question for today. And let me get this started. Okay, the online folks should see it. Everybody have a card? Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay, C is a very popular answer, both in class and online, which is good because C is the correct answer. Let's just take a look at this for a minute. No, the initialization vector is not the first block. It's exclusive OR with the first block. It does not have to be secret. We talked about that. It must be, no, it doesn't have to be the same as the key, but it is usually prefixed to the beginning of the data and sent to the other side, so they have the same initialization vector to decrypt. Okay. Oh, we have a Monica Royster has a question. Speak up, Ms. Royster.
Hey, I think that was an accident. Sorry about that.
Oh, fine. That's okay. There. Moving on. Maybe. There we are. Okay. We talked briefly about chafing and winnowing. Oh, what is this woman doing? She's winnowing her grain. That is, she has grain in a basket in the wind. She pours it slowly. The wheat kernels drop down. The chaff, the wheat husks, you pound it a bunch, loosen up the husk, and the husks blow away. People have been doing that for thousands of years to clean the grain. So there it is, still being done in places. Okay, but basically, the whole concept is mixing up the data with false data. you generally use a MAC message authentication code. You send, right? Some of the message authentication codes are correct, some are not. You send a whole stream of messages. Some are valid, some are not. The receiver knows which ones are valid because the message authentication code can be decrypted and comes out correct. And they keep those bits and they discard the others. So it's also a message for stenography. Stenography is hiding of information. We will talk more about that a little later on in the semester. Okay, digital signatures. Very similar to the idea of message authentication codes. Frequently, people want to be able to mark something as theirs. You might want to say, this file was made by me. This program comes from Acme Corporation. Or you might want to sign a contract online. You might want to say, yes, I'm going to buy 1,000 widgets. I will pay for 1,000 widgets. So when the company backs up the truck to put 1,000 widgets on my loading dock, yes, I am going to pay for it. So it should be, in some senses, similar to the protection you provide in the real world by a handwritten signature. When you sign a contract, it should be difficult to forge. It means nobody should be able to make a digital signature that should not be able to. Easily verifiable. You should be able to tell that, yes, this is correct, that nobody forged it. Not deniable, meaning once you sign it, you can say, it must have been you because nobody else could have done it. Easy to implement, of course. You want something that's easy to do. And you want to differ from document to document so that somebody can't just copy your digital signature from one file, stick it in another file, and then make it look like it's digitally signed. Okay. Digital signatures are like immediate access control in a sense. They do not encrypt the data. They simply add a hash to the end to verify who it is. RSA algorithm is frequently used in this. And another thing to remember about the RSA algorithm is you have a public key and a private key, and you can encrypt with one and decrypt the other. Doesn't matter which one. You can encrypt with the public key, decrypt with the private key, or encrypt with the private key and decrypt with the public key. It works both ways. Okay, here is the process. Let me explain this when we look at the picture. Everybody likes pictures. Okay, start over here. We have user 1, and they're going to send a message to user 2. Well, we will use our characters. Over here is Alice sending a message to Bob, because Alice always sends messages to Bob. I think Bob would get tired of it. So we have the plain text, which, again, text or document or picture, program, whatever it is, uses a favorite hash algorithm like SHA-1 or whatever, and then takes that hash and encrypts it with Alice's private key, and then appends it to the message, sends it across the network. Bob gets it. Bob takes the hash off and decrypts that with Alice's public key, which you can easily get because there's a lot of places out he can get his public key. Meanwhile, he also takes that text, runs it through the same hash algorithm, gets a hash, and compares them. If they compare correctly, if the decrypted hash is the same as the one you calculated, then you have a high sense of reliability that the message has not been changed and that it actually comes from Alice because it was encrypted with Alice's private key. And in theory, only Alice knows Alice's private key, and you can decrypt it with Alice's public key. Yes, question? How are they decided? How are they created? We talked about these are, okay, if we use RSA, the public key is the N, the modular number N, and that number we call D, and then the decryptor is N and E. You had a question, sir? In the picture here, the E represents the encryption algorithm. I'm sorry, and the D represents the decryption algorithm. Yeah, we have an acronym collision here. They are not the E and the D that you use in RSA when you,
Is the one right?
Oh, okay. Public key encryption refers to an asymmetric encryption. It probably would have make more sense if I had said this is the asymmetric RSA encryption algorithm, and this is the RSA decryption algorithm. Yes. RSA is an asymmetric algorithm, often referred to as a public key algorithm because one of the keys can be made public. Right. Okay. You take that result of the hash, which is a number. SHA-1 creates a 160-bit, which is just 20 bytes number. You take those 20 bytes and using RSA algorithm, you encrypt it with Alice's private key. That would be the N and the E letter. They raise it to the letter E. Right. We use Alice's private key. We use the private key in this case to encrypt. And then on the other side, we use Alice's public key. Bob can get Alice's public key because it's public. We'll talk about how you might get it. There are multiple ways you can share keys. And then using Alice's public key, we decrypt. Did I hit it that time? Okay. I have some more slides. Let me see if I answer that. Okay. All right. Digital signatures are used all over the place. I use them when I send email. Sometimes my personal Gmail account, I have an email. I have a digital certificate. I sign the email. But the only time I use that is I send email to my wife, which I encrypt and I sign. So nobody else sees what I'm saying to my wife, which is not a problem because her computer's right behind me. I just could turn around and tell her, but no. Hey, any teenager would send a text message. I send signed email. Okay, applets, programs that you send on the internet. You have a significant concern whether this is from the place it comes from. Back earlier, particularly people with a Apple Mac OS system, had problems with the Johnny program because the Johnny program is not signed. And sometimes their system would say, no, I will not run this program because it is not signed. A lot of systems require you to sign the program. Use that as digitally sign it, like we described, so that when it gets to the other side, they can check the signature and make sure it actually comes from where it's supposed to. But again, if it's signed and you know it can't be modified, then nobody can put a virus in it. Question?
Run the executable, it'll pop up and be like,
Yeah, right. Yeah, yes. If you Windows, look, there's a similar thing on Mac. It's a different picture, but yes, if you get a program that either does not have a signature, that's one message. And there it says the application's digital signature cannot be verified. You want to run the application. That means it didn't have a digital signature. And it doesn't know if it's really the true and honest one that you were supposed to get because it's not signed, and ask you, do you really want to run it? If you were getting it from what you thought was a verified source, you're getting it from Microsoft or Google or some big company, it'll be signed. So if you get a version that tells you it's not signed, don't run it. Apple has a very similar message. Now there's a separate message that says the signature is wrong. It says, you got this, the signature is wrong. Never run it if the signature is wrong. That means it did not come from where it says it came from, or it's been modified. So, yes. Okay. You can sign documents. The homework assignment that's out there that's due on Monday requires you to sign a file. On the class website, that's the Comp 422, Comp 620.online, there are instructions on how to sign files. And I'll be covering it a little bit later on in the class. I even have examples. Okay, what things digital signatures are not. They are not something that looks like a handwritten signature. There are several systems that will put a handwritten signature on the bottom of your. We're not doing that. Also, it's common for people to have what they call a signature block on the bottom of their email that has their name and address and pronouns and all the other things that people put in signature blocks are down there. We're not talking about that. That's not this. I might also point out that Gmail, which runs aggies.ncat.edu mail, does not support digital signatures. Now, I read my mail using Microsoft Outlook. It's a Microsoft program, part of Office 360 or 65, whatever it is. Anyway, which I paid for. The university does not own. And I use that, but I get my Gmail. So I read my Gmail on that, and therefore I can look at the digital signatures. But the web interface that Gmail provides for students or anybody else doesn't take care of digital signatures. If something's digitally signed, it says there's an attached file, but it doesn't check it. Okay. All right. I didn't make Gmail. All right. And again, we talked about this. So it comes up to this question here. Let's try that one. Okay. Click, 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 click. Okay. Hopefully online people can see the question. Who can see the question? Okay. Like computers are not exactly doing what I want to do. Programs are like that. Okay. Hopefully everybody online. Anybody else want to answer that question? By the way, those of you who are watching this recorded on YouTube, when questions come up, think about them. Do you know the answer? Then, you can take a break for a few seconds till we come up with the answer and see if you really know it. If you don't know it, then you may want to go back and take a look. Okay. C and D are popular in class. B is popular, C and D. So we'll take a look. What is the answer? Well, the answer is C. They're about the same idea. You take a hash of the message, you encrypt it, and put it on the end of the message. Almost the same thing as digital signatures. But digital signatures go on to get a little bit more complex, and we'll just talk about that now. C, the answer was C, are about the same idea. Okay. We have talked about public key or asymmetrical encryption algorithm. Asymmetrical encryption algorithm, there's a public key and a secret key or a private key. Private key is easy. You keep the private key to yourself. You don't tell anybody else what it is. The public key, other people have to know it. Well, how do the people get hold of that public key? And you have to make sure that they get hold of the right public key. You don't, we talk about Alice and Bob. You don't want Eve be sending Bob a key. Say this key is for Alice, when in fact it's really for Eve. So you have to make sure you're getting the right key. So several ways to do this. One, key exchange. Well, an easy way is to put your key on a thumb drive, USB thumb drive. Alice can walk over to Bob and hand it to him. That works real well if Bob is in the neighborhood, and she can do that. And the government puts it in a diplomatic pouch, gives it to a Marine who takes it to the consul in whatever foreign country and hands it to the ambassador. That works. Gets it there. In theory, everybody's going to tackle the Marine and get it from them. And if the real Marine doesn't show up, well, you don't use that. Okay. But there are other ways to do it. I mentioned human interaction. There are key servers and digital certificates. Key servers, pretty simple. You have a server that has everybody's key, everybody's public key. And then you send a request to the server and it sends you the key. Pretty simple concept. It would, of course, sign the message that it reads. So if you said, I want Bob's public key, you would get the public key, but the message containing the public key would be signed by the server, and you should therefore be able to recognize it as the correct one. You have to have the server's key. When we do a lot of the cryptographic stuff, we rely on random numbers, cryptographically random numbers. In all your programming languages, they have random number generators that generate pseudo-random numbers. It's very simple. There's some very well-known algorithms for generating random numbers. You multiply it by something mod, something else, add a number to it, and you got this weird number, and it goes through a series. But looking at it, it's very hard to tell what is that sequence of numbers. You get a word of random bits, and you do the algorithm, and you get another word of random bits, and it's hard to tell if there is a sequence in it. That's what we use them for. Random numbers are very useful for lots of simulations and other things, and encryption. There are ways you can make real random numbers, not just pseudo-randoms. Thermal noise, chips sometimes have noise. You can design the chip absolutely the way you wouldn't want to do it in real life because it's noisy, and then use that noise to what you assume is random. A lot of radioactive decay, thermal noise, all those sorts of things to measure it. And then it gives you a random number. Most systems now also have cryptographically random numbers. They take more time to generate, but I don't know what they use, but they do a bunch of these things, looking at different values they can find on the system to generate a random number. It's actually a challenge to do that. Often, we'll use random numbers to send to the other side to ensure that when I get the message back, that this is a reply to the message I just sent and not a replay from an earlier message. We have the concept of a nonce, or a number once. So a nonce is just a random number. I will send the nonce to you, and you will send it back to me, and I will know, oh, yes, you are replying to the message I just sent because it has the random number. Typically, though, there's a little bit of encryption involved in this. So I encrypt it, you encrypt it, and we know, yes, not only do I know that it is the response to the recent message, but the encryption matches up media access controls and all that sort of thing. Yes, question?
Pseudo-random number, it's not such good as the algorithm. It's not really random.
Right, a pseudo-random number are very easy to generate. There are lots of algorithms out there to do them, but because they are well known, if you're on a Unix system and you're using the standard random number generator, you can, given if you know what the number is, you can use that random number generator to calculate the next number because it always goes that way. So you know what the next number is. So for many cases, if you're not using it for security, it doesn't usually matter. It looks random enough. And there are all sorts of statistical techniques you can use to see, does it look random? Oh, yes, they look random. But for security, it's not so good because people know the algorithm. And once you got a value, they'll know what the next one is. The next, with a little bit of work, they can go back. A little bit harder, but you can do that. Okay. Concept of a session key is a set of keys we make to communicate that we're only going to use for this interaction. When you log on to a server, or when you're going out to look at something, a web page, it generates a key pair, and then when you leave, discards the key pair, and we're all done. The advantage of that is next time you go someplace, you do a different key pair, and so any previous interactions, if you use the same key all the time, then a intruder, the bad guys could look at the encryption in the beginning, and then if you keep using it year after year, they have years to try to crack it, and eventually they might get to it. If you keep using different keys, they might spend years trying to crack the first one, but that doesn't give them anything in the next ones. They're all different. Forward search. If the messages are small, sometimes you can encrypt all the possible messages and look at what they are. Okay, so here's my example. Paul is going to send George a message, one of two messages, by land or by sea. And so he's not going to go in the tower and light a lamp. He's going to send it electronically because this is more modern. Now, Benedict wants to take it out. So Benedict knows what they're sending, doesn't know what message they're going to send. But there's only two choices, by land or by sea. So Benedict looks at the message. Is this an encryption of by land or is this an encryption of by sea? You should be able to tell from previous messages, you may be able to tell which one it is, so we can figure it out by looking at all the possible combinations. So if you have a limited number of possible combinations, you can encrypt them all and then see which ones they are. That only works. But frequently, there are only a small number of combinations. You are responding yes, no to something. Well, is it a yes or is it a no? I will look at the encryption system and figure out what a yes looks like, encrypt a no, and then it's either one or the other. The advantage of session keys is every time you get a new key, every time you have a new communication, you use new keys, so it doesn't worry about what was going on before. Okay. So thinking about, yes, we have a question? Oh, if you've been using the same key and our Benedict has seen the messages go back and forth and has been able to decide, oh, I got this message and they're coming across by land. I got this other message and they're coming across by sea. You will know what they mean. Okay, that tells them after the fact what the message was. Now, if you keep using the same key and he sees another message, you'll know, oh, I know what that one means. If, though, you change keys all the time, you won't know. Okay. All right, so think about the key servers. We're get a key. You can do it securely. Alice is going to send a message to the server and tell them, I want Bob's key, and here's a random number. Nonce number 1. Nonce, I think it's nonce. So the server then sends Alice a message. Since the server has a private key and knows everybody has the server's key, the server will send Bob's key and the nonce. And all of this will be encrypted with the private key of the server, which assuming Alice has the public key of the server. We're going to make this assumption that the public key of the server is known to everyone. Public, it's available everywhere in files. So if Alice has the public key of the server, he doesn't have to have everybody's public key. He only has to have one public key, that of the server, which is very commonly used these days. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So when Alice gets this message, she can decrypt it with the public key of the server and then look and say, oh, there's Bob's key, and check the nonce. Is this the same nonce that I received? Now, it's the decrypted version of the nonce. So if she gets it, she knows it's the reply to the message she just sent. It can't be an old reply or a fake reply, because only the server can encrypt this in such a way that when Alice decrypts it with the public key, she'll be able to look at it and get to it. Okay. There are algorithms for exchanging keys to a third party. We'll assume that everybody has Kathy's key. So just go through this real quickly. Alice sends a message to Kathy saying, excuse me, saying she's Alice. She wants Bob's key, and here's a random number. Kathy sends Alice a reply. Hey, Alice, here's Bob's. You want this from Bob. Here's the nonce. Here is a key that we're going to use. This is a nonce for our side. And Here's everything encrypted. Then Alice can send it to Bob. Bob can get it. Oh, yes, I recognize this because it's encrypted by Kathy. And he can decrypt it and send it. So now we can send things. We send the nonce back and forth to make sure that it's okay. It's not important to understand that. The system got advanced into something called Kerberos, which is used for many years. Kerberos is an authentication system involving multiple computers. It's used in Microsoft Active Directory, which is very popular for when you have a large number of Microsoft Windows computers on a network, particularly in business. It uses symmetric key encryption, so it's fast. It's old enough, back in the 80s, it used DES. Now it uses AES. And it has multiple servers. We have what we call application servers. An application server might be a file server. So if you want to send something to get printed, you send it off to the print server that prints it. You want to access something from a file server, you use a file server, that sort of stuff. All of these have keys. So everything going across the network is encrypted. So that's Kerberos. So the silliest question you will see today and possibly for the semester, where does Kerberos come from? This question is to even the playing field. All those computer science students are now at a disadvantage to the liberal arts students who probably read this. Oh, man. Somebody was wrong. I don't know who that could have been. All right. Yes. Hey, people got that one. Yes, it was Hercules. One of the 12 labors of Hercules was to capture Kerberos, who guarded the doors to Hades. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Hercules. Homer was a poet. Thor is Norse mythology. Achilles was Greek mythology. Yeah, but it wasn't him. Excuse me? Yeah. He was invulnerable. He was in the Trojan War. His heel was the only place you could hurt him. And they got him. Okay, but moving on. Look, Kerberos, by the way, Kerberos, the Greek mythology is a C, Kerberos server is a K. Okay, let's talk briefly about how this works because it's a pretty interesting application of encryption. Again, it uses symmetric key encryption, but it has a system for utilizing. Okay, we have a couple servers. Not in addition to all the servers that provide functionality like print servers, file servers, there's also two special servers for this. There's an authentication server and ticket granting server. Authentication server just validates that you are you. You have to log into the system on the authentication server. So you first come on, log into the authentication server, prove that you're you, and then you go to the ticket granting servers to get tickets, which are encryption keys that you can use to access all of the servers. All the keys, all the servers, all the time are different. Nobody knows what's going across the network. Now, by the way, often the authentication server and ticket granting server are in the same box, the same machine. Keys, again, it uses AES key. There's encryption keys known only to AES, the application server, and the ticket granting server. Each application server has an encryption key known only to that application server and the ticket granting server. New keys are created all the time. If you want to connect to the ticket granting server, to an application server, you will be getting a new key to use for that. We'll talk about how you get that. Okay, there's timestamps and all these things to make sure that they're not old. We will not talk about the timestamps. Okay, so I'm going to show pictures that look like this. It's a box, the data is inside the box, and it's encrypted with that key. Okay, basically, the client authenticates to the authentication server. This happens at the beginning in the morning when you get there. Then you ask the ticket granting server if you want to use an application server, and it sends you send a request. it sends you back a reply saying, yes, use this key. And then you can access the servers. Okay. To connect to the authentication server, you just send a message saying, hi, authentication server. Here's my user ID, and here's one of those nonces. It doesn't have to be encrypted. Just send it on. The application server sends back two encrypted things. One is encrypted with the users. Now, the authentication server has a key it knows for every user. So you send something to it, and it replies with key and the nonce that you sent it, all encrypted with your key, which in theory only you know and the application server knows. And then it also sends you another key that it shares with the ticket granting server, and it encrypts a new key here. Okay, what do you do with that? You take that new key, you take that block that you got from the authentication server, along with who do you want to connect to, what server do you want to use, footprint server, file server, and a second random number, and your user ID, and you stick all those and you send it off to the ticket granting server saying, I want to use this app. Here's a random number. This is me. And I got this set of bytes from the authentication server, which validates that I am me. How does the ticket granting server knows it's you because, we'll back up, knows it's a real message because that you must have logged on correctly with the authentication server because you've got this thing that's encrypted with the key that the authentication server and the ticket granting server share. Nobody else knows it. But inside there, it's got your user ID and a key. So it knows, it looks at this user ID and encrypted, and the one that you sent, it goes, oh yeah, this must be you. The authentication server thinks it's you. I will trust that. And then it replies, sending you a key that you can use to connect the application server. It will send that back to you with your user ID. It encrypts that with that new key. The new key one, that was backing up. That's that new key you have. It encrypts with that. So now you can get that, all this stuff. The random numbers, and the new key. And then it sends this bunch of bits that are encrypted with the application server. Then you send the message now to the application server with that bunch of bits. It goes, oh, the application server, this must be valid because this is encrypted with the key server. So I know it's good. It's got the nonce. And then it's all in the textbook and on the web. It takes a little time to get the idea of it. We're not going to do this question. The answer, by the way, was 6. There are 6 messages to get going. Message to the authentication server, message back, message to ticket granting server, a message back, a message to the application server, and a message back. Now you're ready to roll. But all those messages allow you to have unique keys now whenever you talk to a server. They make session keys for each time you connect. Okay, what I do want to talk about are digital certificates. This is another way to pass around public keys. The best way to pass it is whenever you send a message, when Alice sends a message to Bob, she sends a message and she sends her public key along with the message. That makes it easy. But how do you know Okay, sorry, trying to respond to text message. We have keys going back and forth. How do you know they're valid? Because the keys are hashed, and a hash of the key is encrypted by a certificate authority. There are companies out there like Thought and others that are certificate authorities. These are companies that sell digital certificates. It's just a bunch of bytes that they will gladly sell you. Sometimes you can get them for free. You can get simple digital certificates to work for your email, or for simple, you can usually find those for free. Others you can pay for. Or you can make them yourself. I'll show an example of that shortly. Everybody has to have the public key of the certificate authority for this to work. But since it's public key, in Microsoft world and in Apple, the operating system contains a long list of keys from certificate authorities. If you go into like Microsoft, you can get a list of all the certificate authorities that it has for you. And occasionally it updates this when you get security updates. Here's a picture that explains a little bit about how it works. Okay, this is the message that Alice is going to send to Bob. So we have the data. We have a hash of the data. The hash of the data is encrypted with Alice's private key. So Bob can use Alice's public key to decrypt this and check, make sure it's correct. How does he know what Bob's public key was sent along with the message? How does he know that's the correct key? Well, here's a checksum or a hash of Alice's public key. And the hash is encrypted with a certificate authority's private key. And since everybody, including Bob, has the certificate authority's public key, he can decrypt this, make his own hash of Alice's public key, see if they check. They do check, he knows this is the correct key for Alice, and then using this Alice public key, decrypt this, and get the data. Therefore, he's got the key when he needs it. You can do certificate chains. Imagine we have a university system where all faculty members have key. The faculty member's key is given to them by the department chair. The department chair gets a key from the dean gets a key from the chancellor. And so everybody on the university only has to have the chancellor's public key, because the chancellor's public key, then they can go through a chain. Well, they can look at the dean's public key, get that chair, and check out messages, and they know it's on. When you look at the keys online, it'll show you the chain of trust. I'm going to skip this, but the answer is a digital certificate contains the public key of the owner. Moving right along, yes, public key of the owner. There are multiple standards for digital certificates. What format they're in? X5.509 is one of them. There are others. You can buy them in multiple places. Last time I checked, these companies sell free digital certificates. Now, they're usually free for just regular old users. If you want to buy one for your server, they are not so free. They usually cost a couple $100. The real reason they cost, they're just bytes. I mean, they take a couple milliseconds of computer time, but they guarantee that they work. And it's paying the kind of insurance that they guarantee that they work is what costs them so much. If I look here, this is a Microsoft, but it's very similar on Windows or on Mac. If I am looking at the list of keys you can get in your browser, you've got Chrome or Edge, you look in your browser and it shows you the list of keys. Also, Microsoft Office will show you the list of keys. You go here, you can click on Trusted Root Certificate Authorities. And here's a whole list of Trusted Root Certificate Authorities. There's Microsoft ones, Hotspot. Oh, Dr. Shu got in there. Well, yeah, he sent me a key once and I accepted it as a certificate authority, which you can do. When I got it, when I said, no, this is not a trusted certificate authority, I said, well, trust it. And I have, now it's in my system. So Dr. Shu can send me signed things, signed by a certificate that he made, and my system will trust it. Now, sometimes something happens and somebody finds out somebody's private key, and therefore their public key, their key system is not going to work. So what you can do is they can revoke the key. These certificate authorities have revocation lists. They make a list of keys that are no longer any good. So that part of the process of doing this, when you have, HTTPS or the transport layer security, it's optional, but it should, when you get the certificate, when you log on. Remember, transport layer security uses hybrid security. It uses public key encryption to send a bunch of bits that can be used for an AES key to the other side. When you do that, it's sending the digital certificate along, and the side should check to see that the digital certificate has not been revoked and that the digital certificate contains the website of the website where this is coming from, that they match. If it doesn't match, you shouldn't use it. Unfortunately, checking is not mandatory. You don't have to check. But if you don't check, you won't know whether it has been revoked. And revoking it can cause all sorts of problems. Creating digital certificates. You have to have a digital certificate for the assignment. The digital certificate must contain your name. It's important. Part of the requirement, the digital certificate must contain your name. So if you go out and buy one, there's a process online that it'll use for asking your name. So when you upload the file, it's been digitally signed by you. When I look at the signature, I can say, oh, yes, it has been signed by this person. I can see it's your name. If it's not your name, you don't get credit for it. You can you can get for free all sorts of Java to Java. This is the Java system development kit. It's free from here. The latest version is 22, and it has all sorts of keys like KeyTool, Jar Signer. KeyTool makes keys. The Jar Signer signs jars. You can get documentation for it here. Go out and look, particularly in the Jar Signer. I scroll down near the end of the Jar Signer documentation, which is rather lengthy and has more details than you want to know, but I get near the end and it has examples. Aha, that's how you do it. Just follow one of the examples. There's something called a key store. A key store is just a directory. It's just a directory that has a bunch of files that are encrypted. That's where it keeps your digital certificate, are kept in a key store or a directory that is encrypted. Is that a question or just an itch? Well, okay. Here's how the key store works. In the few minutes we have left over, let's try it. So dropping out of this. Okay, we have stopped sharing. Hang on, we are not done yet. Okay, back to where is Zoom? And there. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my command line in Windows. All right. Oh, you can't. Well, yes, you can't. I can see here. I wonder why. Why can you not see this? Hang on. I have a going to try something. Oh, that's probably the easiest way. I drag this. No, not that way. Oh, there we go. Okay. That makes John not to look over my shoulder to see because I can't see it. Oh, there's my mouse. Okay. Hang on. All right. I have a sheet here. Okay. I've got, let's take a look. Oh, nope. Sorry. Don't take a look at that. There we go. Okay. Following what's in the slide, if you looked at the last slide, I'm using the key tool, which, by the way, in my system, the Java development kit is in my path, so I can use it. Otherwise, you'd have to use the directory name of the Java development kit / key tool. The option generate a key pair - alias, give it a name. I just use my last name - key store. Give it a name. I called it class cert, which is what I have in the example. -store password. What is the password for the key store? I just called it my secret, which probably appears in the 1,000 most popular keys, but I use it anyway. And then what algorithm do you want to use? We're using the RSA algorithm. So I put that out there and I hit enter. And now it's going to ask me some questions because it's generate the key. So what is my name? So I'll just type in Ken. So now it's going to generate a key it's going to have my name in it, which is required for the assignment. So I know name of your organizational unit. I'm going to put computer science. Now, of course, you do it. Name it NCANT State University. Good enough. City, we'll say Greensboro. Obviously, this is just documentation. We're in the US. Does that look good? Yeah, I like that. We'll just say yes and go with that. And bingo. There it is. It has generated that's a 3K. Number 1K is 1024 times 3 is 3072. A 3K key, RSA key pair, and self-signed certificate using SHA 384. That's one of the SHA 1, SHA 255, SHA 384, and with RSA encrypting it, and it's good for 90 days. You could change that 90 days if there's a parameter in there. If you want it to last longer, 90 days is plenty long for me. And there it goes. Okay, so now we have that key. It is in this directory. If I do a dir, look at my files, and you can see, yes, there is a directory or file, but it's a file, I guess, class cert, in which the key is stored. I can use that. I need a jar. I need something to sign. Hang on. There's another tool called a jar sign. You can sign a jar. I need a jar to sign, but not to worry. I've got Java out there, the Java JDK library. Oh, yes, there is one. I just went out and copied a random I'm going to copy a random jar file into my directory. Not really. No, where did that go? Where am I? Oh, wrong place. Try again. Sorry, I have. Okay, now. Yeah, yes, now I have a jar file that I took from the Java library. It's not important, it's just a file. I'll put something out on the website. It's just one of those Java libraries, who knows what it has. But this is a program that is jar signing, so we'll sign the jar. Okay, so. I happen to have all these things saved up. Let's see if I do this. Yes, okay. Oh, yeah, that's a lot of good. Oh, that's more than you wanted to see. It goes. Oh, nope, that's not working. Well, okay. Trust me, it was listing out everything in that jar, which is more than you want to know. But it signed it. It is signed. You can verify it if you want to know what the server. Okay, back to this. We now have the signed by me jar, which is the original jar, but it's signed. You look at the size, you notice it's slightly larger because it has the sign. We can verify that using the jar signer, verify. And yes, I can get that. The mouse will behave well. Oop, that's not working at all. Yes. Fortunately, I cannot easily scroll up on that, but yes. It does say the jar is self-signed. Okay. But I signed it, I checked the validity of it, do all those sort of things. That's enough of that. And get back. There. Okay. I think we'll let it go at that. We'll finish up the rest of the slides, of which there are not very, well, there's 10. We'll talk about those on Monday. Thing to, let's get back to sharing my screen. Hang on, Zoomers. One more time. Function 5. Okay. And try this again. Okay, just remind you of the assignments. An assignment has been posted out on Blackboard, has some questions. You have to sign a file showing you how to do that. There's also instructions on how to do that on the website. This is due Monday at noon. There's another assignment out there, since people did not seem to be very good at number bases. We'll practice that. This is slow. You have a couple weeks to do this one. You have 2 weeks to do this, but it's not that important. It'll be after the exam. The exam is in 1 week. Remember, this is timed. You must do it fast. Fast means in 3 minutes. There's 20 questions. If you do it 9 seconds each, that's 180 seconds. Plenty of time. 3 minutes. But if it takes you more than 3 minutes, it starts deducting points. So if you want to get 100, you got to get 100% correct in 3 minutes. You can try as often as you like. Question. Log base 2, log base 16, hexadecimal, and decimal. Try it out. Remember, you can try it as often as you want. Put your name on it, so when you get a good score, I know it's you. If you only put part of your name, I won't know who to give the grade to. And remember, look at the syllabus. 1 week from today is the first exam in this class. The questions we had, the encryption assignment, somewhat similar to questions you will see on the exam. Any questions? And that's it. See you next time. Okay. Anybody questions online? Nope, guess not.